How you doing? This is Sean McVeigh, Sean's Outdoor Adventures. Welcome to my 2024 compound bow review. So I'm going to be reviewing bows today at Lewis Access Outfitters. Now, if you've watched my review videos in recent years, I've been doing them at Palo Outdoors. They have now moved locations. They're just off the Lewis Access Road exit on Route 380. They're on Mustang Lane, so make sure you look them up. That's 807 Mustang Lane. Still have an incredible selection of bows and accessories, arrows, everything you would need to get outfitted for archery. They also have guns. They also have fishing equipment, basically anything you need to go fishing, hunting. You come to Lewis Access Outfitters, they're going to have what you need. So my parameters for today for doing the compound bow reviews is I'm going to be shooting a 303. I'm going to take 3 shots with a 350 grain arrow. And I always use arrows without fletching because most bows, when you're at a pro shop, they have like a whisker biscuit arrow rest with bristles, and which is what we have on this bow right here. And that will slow down the arrow with fletching because of friction. So in order to avoid any modifications due to that, I just simply shoot arrows with no fletching. So I'm going to take 3 shots with a 350 grain arrow, 1 shot with a 450 grain arrow, 1 shot with a 550 grain arrow. That's just to give us a sense what the speed of the bow is going to be at those heavier arrows. And the reason why I only take 1 shot is it's going to give us a general idea. Usually within the 3 shots, you're going to have a consistent reading, and it's going to be very close. Even if 3 shots at 450 grain and 550 grain would have given us 1 foot per second difference, it's going to be very close. So my goal is to shoot all the bows at 30-inch draw and 70 pounds because that gives us the ATA standard. But this particular bow, this is the Mathews Lift 29.5-inch axle to axle. They only have it in 29-inch draw length today. So our speed readings are going to be probably 6 to maybe even 10 feet per second slower than it would be if it was at a 30-inch draw length. This is the Mathews Lift. They have the 4-limb system with the rubber piece in the middle again this year. A little bit of a straighter back edge on the cam. The riser is a little thinner than in the past. Let me draw back and ease down just to get a sense here. Okay, so that's 29-inch draw. I'm not the smoothest at drawing 29-inch draw because that's several inches shorter than my actual draw length. I'm going to ease down. And so you can feel a little hump right at the end with this, with the draw cycle. I'm going to shoot through the chronograph here. (332 feet per second and 80.8 decibels. Take another shot. Again, this would be a little bit faster if we were at the 30-inch draw length setting. And I'm usually asked what release they're using. Today I'm using the True Ball Short and Sweet. This is the release I use for hunting, and I've been using it for probably 8 years now. I'm 36 inches away from the chronograph. That's my standard at every place where I do reviews. 332 feet per second. And as you can see, when the bow goes off, very dead in the hand. This is, I mean, if you've shot a Mathews in recent years, this one is no exception to the feel of the Mathews bow. It's a very smooth shooting bow. I mean, you can barely feel it go off. It doesn't move in your hand. 330 feet per second. All right, let's take a shot with the 450 grain arrow. That little hump at the end. 293 feet per second. And a 550 grain arrow. .275 feet per second. So first impressions, shooting the Mathews Lift 29.5-inch draw length setting. And I have been criticized in the past for the way I look drawing these bows. I'll just make a mention on that. First of all, I don't shoot at 70 pounds. I usually shoot around 63, 64 pounds. So I'm pulling a lot more weight than I'm used to for shooting when I make these bow reviews. Secondly, having a draw length that's much shorter, you're using different muscles at different weights in different areas of the draw length. And it's actually awkward when you're pulling a draw length that's shorter than what you're used to. So I do look a little clumsy sometimes pulling them. But I will say you can feel a little getting over that hump right near the end. You can see in the draw cycle that you're going to feel that a little bit. But incredible when you shoot this bow and it goes off, you almost don't even feel it in your hand. It doesn't go anywhere. It just sits there. So that's pretty nice. So I've logged the data. I'm going to do a comparison with all the data at the end of this video. Let's move on to the Mathews Lift. I believe it's a 33-inch axle to axle. It's hanging over there. I got to look at it. And the other one, we have an example with the inline components. So you can have the rest, it goes into the center of the riser and the sight, and then the rest can hook onto the back of the riser so it's in line with the riser and doesn't create any side weight. So it helps the bow kind of balance vertically in the shot process without needing a lot of extra weight over here to offset the balance of that. So our next bow actually has the components so you can kind of see what that looks like for the Mathews. Let's take a look at that bow. So this is the Mathews Lift 33-inch axle to axle. This one is an example with it loaded with accessories. Now for the stabilizer, while you can screw a stabilizer in, they also have their own sort of technology where you can put this stabilizer into the riser and secure it this way. For the arrow rest, as you can see, it's in line with the riser. And then the sight in line with the riser slides into the riser there. Okay, so this is the 33-inch axle to axle. I didn't mention this in the other one, but it looks like they've built in a little piece here for putting it in a bow press, making it quicker and easier on the end of the limb there. I'll also mention one thing that we see with Mathews is their axle to axle length here. It's kind of actually shorter than where the limbs are at. So the overall bow itself, although the axle to axle is 33 inches, the farthest point, here to here, actually I didn't measure that, let me check it. So if we go from the top, the high point of the limb to the high point of the limb, we're actually at 34.5-inch measuring length from, here to the other side right there. And then your cam is even farther than that. So if we were to measure like outside edge of the cam to the outside edge of the cam, you're at 39 inches from the outside edge of the cam to the outside edge of the cam. So when you're thinking about comparing a Mathews and the axle to axle length with other bows, keep that in mind. Just the way they build their risers, a really long riser. And that kind of contributes with the cam and the limbs being back farther than your farthest point on the limb here. So one thing I did notice with the 33-inch axle, comparing it to the 29.5, is the brace height is 3/8 of an inch longer. So the other one was 6 inches. This is measuring 6 3/8. Now, because of the new range here, it's a little bit more echoey, and I think it's going to really prohibit us from getting good data for our decibel meter readings. I'll take another couple tests with it, but I think we may end up skipping it for today because I don't know that we're getting the kind of accurate readings with that we could if there was less acoustical echoing.
And I'm going to interject this. I have been using a filter on the audio because the audio is so bad. I'm going to take the filter off. This is the audio I got while I was on site. I'm going to let you hear this little clip with it as it was recorded, and then I'm going to put the filter back on.
I don't know that we're getting the kind of accurate readings with that we could if there was less acoustical echoing. So let me just pull back and ease down. So this is 71.1 pounds, 30 inch. This did measure 30 inches. I'm going to ease down. Okay, it's very smooth, does come off the back wall. I would say your this particular bow I'm holding, the let off is going to be close to 80%, somewhere around there. Mathews bows have a cable stop, so there is a little tiny bit of give when you're on that back wall. Let's go ahead and take 3 shots and check our speed readings here. Yeah. 334 feet per second. This bow is a little bit easier for me to release and everything because 30 inches, I'm about 31.5 to 32-inch draw length, depending on the bow itself and some of the design factors. Duplicate, so 334 feet per second. So when you're not able to be at full draw, it's harder to have the proper release process. So this bow is a little easier for me just because it's at 30. And again, I test at 30 because of those ATA readings, standards. 333 feet per second. Okay, and then this is the 450 grain arrow. $297 feet per second, 550 grain arrow. And I also, in order to not throw off the chronograph, I draw with the bow pointed to the side of it, and then I come into it. So that if you see me doing that and are wondering, that's why I pull off to the side and then I come in. And again, as you can see, it's very dead in the hand. It doesn't go anywhere. So 276 feet per second. If you've shot Mathews, and I've said it on the other one, the 29.5 inch, it's a very dead in the hand bow. It's a great feeling bow. You do have a very long riser with the Mathews. You can tell that they've thinned out some areas of the riser to try to make it lighter. I weighed this bow with all the accessories on there, and it weighed exactly 5.5 pounds. So just to give you a sense of what you're looking at with all the accessories loaded up, 5.5 pounds. For me, that feels pretty light compared to the setup I've been using. So that's pretty nice. Next up is the Hoyt Alpha X, and this is the 33. Couple things that I just noticed as I was looking at the bow, and I'm just going to step up so you can kind of see this a little clearer. They have a little weight on the cam. I'm sure that's intended to help with speed and things like that. It's noticeable, kind of a flat area on the cam here. They have adjustments where you can change the let off, and that'll also change the draw length just a little bit. So they have some versatility there. This particular bow, we're going to be shooting it at 29-inch draw because they have a module in here, but the peak draw length for the module on this one is 29 inches. They have another module, I've been told, that you can put in there to go longer. But for today, we're going to be shooting at 29. So that'll be somewhat comparable to the Mathews that we started off with. And one of the things that I'll be doing is shooting it with a 350 grain arrow. And if it was a 30-inch draw length, we would probably see anywhere from 6 to 10 foot per second, probably increase in overall speed. And another thing I noticed too this is something I've seen in a couple brands. They've gone to a cam system where the cable goes from the cam to the cam, and they're crisscrossing. So the cable on this side of the cam, on the top cam, crosses over and comes to the right side on the bottom cam. And, you know, as I look at it, here, let me put an arrow on and draw it back. I've been curious to see, you know, or do the cables touch the cam at all? So it looks like we're getting clearance for the top and bottom, which is good to see. Stays on the back wall. You can see as I was easing down, it jumped a little bit. But stays on the back wall, and as you ease up, it does come off. The draw cycle felt pretty nice. And I think one of the reasons that, you know, we've seen Hoyt go away from that hybrid cam system, one of the observations I've made in trying to tune hybrid cams, as the cam itself gets larger, it's harder to keep it tuned nicely with even the slightest bit of cable stretch. With a large cam on a hybrid system, it really has a major impact on arrow flight and where the arrow is going. So that could be related to some of the reason why they gravitated away, and other reasons too. Feels nice. Let's shoot it through the chronograph. And you know, so I would say, here, let's take a shot, and then we'll pause here. This is the 350 grain arrow. (324 feet per second). It feels really good going off. It has that dead in the hand feel. I would say, my personal opinion is that Hoyt has really improved their bow when they went to this cam system, when they went away from the hybrid cam. I do think they have really stepped it up, which is nice to see because, you know, growing up, I was always a Hoyt fan. And, you know, some of their bows were getting kind of jumpy as they were trying to push forward that technology. And they just abandoned it and went to this. And I think it was the right decision. I really think that Hoyts are really good, really contenders now with some of the other brands. 325 feet per second, really good dead in the hand feel. So we're at 325. I would say, you know, if we were shooting this at 30-inch draw, we'd probably be seeing, you know, like 332 in that ballpark. I mean, I would feel confident saying that. .324. So let's try the 450 grain arrow. .287. .268. So I'm going to give you my first impressions shooting this. I would feel confident saying this is the nicest shooting Hoyt I've ever shot as far as the overall feel and experience of shooting the bow. It's a very dead in the hand feel. They've come a long way in the past 5 years in how the bow feels in your hand when it goes off. And if I compare this to even the Mathews that I started off with, this is a smoother draw cycle all the way through. Again, this is a 29-inch draw, so that's awkward for me. I'm usually as much as a 32-inch draw. So ending that much earlier, I'm not used to this being the end here. I'm used to coming in and having a good expansion into the end of my draw so I can ease up as I'm coming in. When I'm ending here, it's hard for me to ease up because this is so short for me. And so anyway, with that being said, it felt very smooth coming in to that full draw length there. So very nice. I'm going to go and take a look at the RX8, which is basically the carbon riser version of this bow. All right, this is the Hoyt carbon RX8, and one thing I noticed when I picked it up is it's slightly longer than the Alpha X. So when I measured the axle to axle, it was 33 and like 5/8 inch axle, a little bit longer, a little bit more of a brace height. We have a 7-inch brace height here, which is a little longer. And this one actually has the mod that I need to go to 30-inch draw. So we're actually able to test this at 30 inches today. And the peak weight came into, I think it was just over 70, might have been somewhere around 71. Let's take a pull back and just see how it feels here. So if I bend my arm a lot, I can kind of anchor in. Ease down. Okay, so it's about at 85%. It's at 85% level. So you really have to let down for it to come off. I kind of like 85% let off. That's kind of my favorite for bow hunting because it stays on the back wall pretty well and easily, but you can ease down. So let's take a shot through the chronograph here. .329 feet per second. Now the other bow will be a little faster shooting than this because it has a shorter brace height. .328. I mean, this very dead in the hand. You don't feel any vibration. It doesn't go anywhere. Very nice shooting. .329. So now we'll go to the 450 grain arrow. .288 feet per second. 550 grain arrow. .272. I would say, I mean, 70 pounds is more than I'm used to shooting, so I do struggle a little bit to draw it back. But if I had this at like 64, 63, 64 pounds, where I normally shoot, it would feel really, it would be perfect. I'm proud of Hoyt. They've come a long way, and I do feel like they've dramatically improved their bow line over, like I was saying before, the last few years. In comparing it with the Mathews today, I think the overall feel, I will give the edge to the Hoyt today, which hasn't been the case over, the last 5 to 10 years. I think Mathews has really had the edge, but I'm going to give my edge to the Hoyt today out of the two, but they're both are really nice bows. And I would encourage you to get out there and shoot them and see which one you like. But between the two bows, I enjoyed them both. Let's go home and I'll just put together the draw force curves and see the final data, and we'll take it from there.
All right, let me talk to you about the data here. I'm back at the home office, and I just want to say too that the both Hoyt bows, the Alpha X and the RX8, have two different versions, and I shot the longer version of both. So the 33-inch axle to axle for the Alpha X, and then the RX8, I had the Ultra. So I want to specify I had the Ultra, which is a longer axle to axle. And so these longer axle to axle models will probably be a little bit slower than the shorter axle to axle models, and also they'll have a slightly longer draw length availability. So I'm just going to look at the data here for the Hoyt Alpha X. I have the brace height that is basically advertised and what I measured, and then as well as the axle to axle. Mine was about a ½ inch longer than advertised, which is fairly normal. I mean, it's just a matter of some adjustment in cable length if it's needed. So the draw length, there are 3 module ranges: 26 to 27, 27 and a quarter to 29, 29 and a quarter to 31. And as I mentioned, I had the 29-inch draw length setting. It was the middle module that we had available. So that's going to impact some of our readings. So the draw weight, actually I have, this was a template 60, 65, 70, 75. And now that I'm looking at it, let me go back and look at their website real quick. They actually have a 40 to 50 pound limb, 50 to 60 pound limb, 55 to 65 limbs, 60 to 70, and then 70, 80. So I apologize for that that data there. So the let off, I believe it's 75, 80, and 85. It didn't mention on their website what was available. Mine measured at 85. So the mass weight as advertised is 4.75 pounds. Mine weighed 5.5 pounds. It did have a whisker biscuit on arrow rest on there. I can't imagine that it would add 3/4 pound. So the firmness of the back wall, this was set up on the cable stop. They probably have a limb stop option. I know they've done that in the past. And so the medium is what you would expect. There's a little bit of give on the back wall. And with an 85% let off, it's a little hard to let down, but I kind of actually like that. Your price is coming in at $1,449. The speed, by the way, I think I skipped over this accidentally. The advertised speed is 334 feet per second. This one measured 324 feet per second. And this was at the 29-inch draw length setting. I will also mention that if we look at their website, which I'm just going to pull it up and look here, they do note their measurement, 334 feet per second, is at the ATA standards. So ATA, the Archery Trade Association standards, is 30-inch draw, 70 pounds, 5 grain per pound arrow, so that's 350 grain arrow. So it's been my experience that with 1 inch of draw length, when you get near that length, like around that 30-inch draw length range, you're gonna increase draw speed. I mean arrow speed about 6 to 10 feet per second per inch at that distance. So whereas mine measured, let me go back here. Mine measured 324 feet per second. If we were at 30-inch draw, we probably would have been right around where they were advertising at 334. You do see the draw force curve here. You can see a little bit of wave in the draw force curve. I didn't actually feel that when I was drawing the bow. It felt very smooth to me. So let's take a look at the next one here. Let's look at the Hoyt RX8 Ultra. I just want to emphasize this was the Ultra model, which is a longer axle to axle length range and everything. So the brace height as advertised is 7 1/16 inch. I was measuring 7 on the dot. The axle to axle length was 34 5/8. The draw length, they have 3 ranges here with the draw mod, and I had it set to 30-inch draw length. And then for the draw weight, mine measured 71.1 pounds. The advertised speed was 332 feet per second. Mine came in at 329 feet per second, so very close. And this one was about 85% let off. Now the mass weight is advertised 4.4 pounds. This one weighed in at 5.2. Firmness of the back wall, medium, and let down, how easy it is to let down, medium to hard, which is good. I kind of prefer that. Here's your draw force curve. Again, there's a little bit of a wave along the top in the way that it drew, but I didn't feel it. Just felt very smooth, and I really thought it was a nice bow. Both of the Hoyts that I got to shoot were really probably the best that I've ever had for a Hoyt, experiencing a Hoyt. For me personally, I do like a longer axle to axle length bow too. So I thought they kind of catered to my little bit of a preference. Some people like a shorter axle to axle bow. So let's take a look at the Mathews lift, and this is the 29. So it's 29.5-inch axle to axle. The brace height is 6 inches, and the draw length range is 25 to 30. The one that I had the chance to shoot was measured 29.5 inches. And let me just interject this. Traditionally, Mathews bows, they actually measure about a ½ inch longer than what is advertised. So like if you're shooting the 29-inch draw module, it's going to measure 29 and a half. That's been my experience. And that's what happens with this one. It was the 29-inch straw mod, came in at 29 and a half. So we were only a half inch shorter than where I was hoping to be. Let me interject this. So I like to shoot at the ATA advertised standards. So that would be 30-inch straw, 70 pounds, 5 grain per pound arrow. So that's a 350 grain arrow. So on Mathews' website, they advertise IBO. Now, with the IBO rating, you can have a longer draw length and you can have a higher draw weight. It just needs to be 5 grains per pound. So it could be a bow shooting 32-inch draw length at 80 pounds, or it could be a bow shooting 60 pounds at 27-inch draw length. All that's really necessary is having that 5 grain per pound increment. But I feel like the ATA standard gives us a better overall picture. But anyway, with their speed, advertised speed, it was 348 feet per second. This one came in at 331. I think that if we had that extra half inch and it was a 30-inch draw length setting, we probably would have been more like 338 or somewhere above 335 in that little pocket, 335, 336 or something, somewhere around there. So this one was around an 85% let off. The mass weight is advertised at 4 pounds. I did not weigh the bow just because I forgot to. And the cost of the bow is $1,329. It's a cable stop bow, so it's kind of like what you would expect for a cable stop bow. There's a little bit of give because the cables can flex a little bit when you're at full draw. Here, the draw force curve is a little more steady all the way throughout. And it did feel like a little bit more of a hump at the very end when I was actually drawing it than the way it looks on the chart here. But this is the data. This is what the scale was reading. And I have to say, like, I've really enjoyed Mathews bows. They have a great platform. Their style. They shoot broadheads very well. I had a Mathews Traverse a few years ago, I believe it was, and shot fixed blade broadheads very easily. I actually had to shim the one cam a little bit, but once I did, I mean, those fixed blade broadheads shot just like field points. And some of my experience with tuning bows, there's been a lot of bows, even really well-named brands, that I've had the chance to shoot with broadheads and struggled to get broadheads to fly like field points. So the Mathews cam system is and their whole platform, their whole bow is very precise. Like, very often your axle to axle length is dead on the advertised amount, the brace height, all that kind of stuff. It's usually really, really close, or exactly dead on. So when we look at the Mathews Lift 33, the brace height was about an 1/8 inch different than the advertised, but very close. Axle to axle was right on the money. The draw length for the Lift 33 measured 30 and a quarter inch. The draw weight, you could have a range of max draw weights you can go with. The draw weight that mine measured here was 71.6 pounds. And I forgot to put in what my speed rating came out to be, but it was 334 feet per second. So about 9 feet per second lower than the advertised. And again, they're advertising it as IBO. So I'm doing ATA standards, so that can change some of the outcome. Now, the mass weight for this one, when I weighed it, was 5.5 pounds, and that was with all the accessories on it. The advertised is 4.26 pounds. By the way, the let off measured 81%. The firmness of the back wall, I say medium just because it's a cable stop that it was set up at. And then also the letdown, it was about a medium. If it's 85%, it's a little harder to let down. Around 80%, you can come off. And then 75% let off, if you have a bow like that, it comes off more easily. So that's just my rating, just to give you a sense. And then, of course, you can see the 450 grain arrow shot 297 feet per second, and the 550 was 276. And of course, there's your draw force curve. So both Mathews and Hoyt are great bows. I did kind of like, if I was gonna buy a bow today, I did really kind of like the overall feel of the Hoyt in general. I mean, both felt great. But today would have been the Hoyt for me. So, but at the same time, I would have been just as happy if they didn't have any Hoyts left in stock and they only had the Mathews. I would have been just as happy walking home with a Mathews. But I do got to give some credit to Hoyt because I think that, as I said while I was on site, their boats have really come along to the point where I feel they have definitely improved, and you can feel that in the shooting of the bow. And so I want to mention that because, and I was criticized years ago for not giving enough love to Hoyt, and it's just because like I'm trying to be straight up and honest, and if I didn't like a particular thing about a bow, I tried to either not say a whole lot or gently mention it, but I'm not here to sell bows. I'm here to just give my honest feedback. And so I feel as though Hoyt has earned that honest feedback from me as far as I did like the bow and I would have picked it today. So hats off to Hoyt. Um, if they want to send me a bow, I'll hunt with it this year. Anyhow, I want to thank you for tuning in. And if when Lewis Access Outfitters gets some more flagship bows in, this was all they had in stock for today when I was there. But if they get some more in, I'll try to do some more review videos and maybe do an overall comparison of more brands. But we only had access to the Hoyts and the Mathews today, so that's why we're doing Mathews versus Hoyt in this video. And thank you for tuning in. I hope you clicked that like button a long time ago. And if you're not a subscriber, hey man, try subscribing and watching some of my other videos. Until next time, take care and God bless.